like to welcome to the stage the founder of Bitcoin.com, Roger Ver. He will be joined as in moderation mode by journalists from Kazumoto Ohno. It's the Roger Ver Fireside, Web3 in Japan, then and now. Big round of applause, please, for these two gentlemen. 大きな拍手お願いします。
Today we have Mr. Roger Ver, also known as Bitcoin Jesus. I'm thrilled to have you here in person, not via Zoom. I'm so sick and tired of Zoom interviews these days. You'd far rather be called Bitcoin Jesus than Bitcoin evangelist?
I prefer to be called Roger.
Okay. Before I get down to the nitty-gritty, I'd like to make sure that you are not Satoshi Nakamoto.
I am not Satoshi Nakamoto.
Really?
Although once upon a time, maybe 2012 or something like that, the Central Bank of Japan contacted me because I was one of the very first people promoting Bitcoin. And they contacted me because they knew I was in Japan. They said, oh, we understand Bitcoin was created by Satoshi Nakamoto, a Japanese person. We would like to meet with him. And I realized that they hadn't even done much research at all at that point. It was good that they were looking, but they didn't, they thought that Satoshi was also hanging out in Tokyo ready to meet with them, but he was not.
But you have never met him?
If I've met him, I'm not aware of having met him.
I see, okay. Let me start. How would you reflect on the past 10 to 12 years since you've been involved in cryptocurrency? You have seen ups and downs, of course. Have you seen it evolve as you expected to?
Another thinker I'm a big fan of is a man named Ray Kurzweil, who's in charge of all of AI at Google. And what he says, and I think he's right about this, is that we always overestimate the amount of progress we're going to make in the short term, but we underestimate the amount of progress we'll make in the long term. And I think that's been true of my experience in crypto. When I was first getting started in this, it felt like Bitcoin was ready to take over the world, and it would just take a couple of weeks or at the most a couple of months. And here I am almost 12 years later, and we've made a huge amount of progress, but it didn't happen quite as quickly as I thought it was going to in the early days. But like everything, I meet people today that don't remember a world without cell phones or without the internet. And I'm 44. I remember all of those times where there was no internet, and there were dial-up modems calling BBSs, and the world changes very, very quickly. So make sure you enjoy the journey.
Well, at one point you were sounding the alarm loudly that Bitcoin was on the wrong track. Do you remember?
So it depends on how you define Bitcoin. If you define it as BTC, I think it is on the wrong track. It's become a speculative asset where speculators are speculating on the future speculation of other speculators. Whereas if we heard from other people on the previous panel, payments, it's the underlying utility that makes these cryptocurrencies so useful. And so we've seen that like BTC, it used to have 95% market share in terms of market cap. Now, I haven't checked recently, but it's well under 50%. It's maybe 30-something%. And so that shows I'm old enough to remember MySpace. MySpace was the premier go-to social media network. Now nobody uses it. I don't even know if there's a website up anymore. And it's because the user experience became bad. And before MySpace, there was Friendster. When the user experience on Friendster became bad, people migrated away from that. And right now, Bitcoin, BTC, has the brand recognition that everybody knows around the world. And on some days it has the most liquidity. Other days maybe Ethereum has more liquidity. But that just shows it's fallen from this 95% market share to less than 50% market share. That's on the wrong track. And so I think the future is on all these EVM chains and the other things that are happening. Or even if you look at what brought Bitcoin to the world in the first place, it was these darknet markets that were using it for illegal commerce. They were all using Bitcoin originally. Today, almost none of them use Bitcoin. They're using things like Monero or other coins. And that's a sign that Bitcoin isn't as useful for payments as it used to be. And so whether it's Monero or Bitcoin Cash or Ethereum or whatever else, there's a huge, giant, wide world out there, and people having more choices is a good thing. Just like we can choose to use the euro, the yen, the dollar, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero, take your pick. Bitcoin Cash, of course, people love me talking about that one as well, but more choices are a good thing. And if people want to speculate on BTC, have at it. If you want to speculate on something else, more power to you. But that's what's the beauty of all these decentralized individual networks. We have a decentralized set of currencies, and you can choose which one of those cryptocurrencies or protocols you want to use, and that's a good thing.
in hindsight, was there anything you could have done or you should have done to put Bitcoin back on track, the right track?
So if I could put on my conspiracy theory hat today, and I don't have hard evidence of this, but it makes the most sense. If you look at it, who has the most to lose from Bitcoin becoming the currency of the entire world? Well, it's the governments around the world that are issuing their own currencies, and particularly the US dollar. And if you look at what happened with Bitcoin, the project was very clearly hijacked from supposed to be peer-to-peer cash for the entire world in which people would use it for payments, to now it's just a speculative asset, and people get mocked if they talk about wanting to do payments with it. And so, like, if you look at it, it's not even a secret. There was a man named Peter Todd. His email account got hacked, and it was leaked that he was literally paid money by someone who openly claims to work for a US intelligence agency to put out, you can call it propaganda or information depending on your point of view, but basically saying that Bitcoin shouldn't be used for payments, and that you should, and basically he went out there and lobbied to break Bitcoin's usefulness in payments. And today, Bitcoin's not very useful for payments unless you're using a custodian. But if you're using a custodian, you've kind of missed the entire point of these decentralized, censorship-resistant networks. The entire point, people talk about decentralization, this and that. Decentralization is the tool, and it's the tool that we use to achieve censorship resistance. And when I talk about censorship, I'm talking about censorship from governments. That's what makes cryptocurrencies so amazing, is that you can send and receive any amount of money with anyone, anywhere on the planet, and it's impossible for anybody, including governments, to stop you. That's what brought this entire ecosystem into existence, is the censorship resistance, and the decentralization is just the tool to achieve that. It's not the goal in and of itself.
The cryptocurrency started with the concept of the separation of money and state, just like the separation of church and state. But we have seen the state and intervention becoming more and more untoward, if you will. What's the take on the state intervention or involvement, including regulations?
So the world we live in, you have to play by all the regulations, because if you don't, men with guns will send you to jail. So of course, if you're running a business or doing something, you have to obey all these rules and regulations, but that doesn't mean that you have a moral obligation to obey those rules and regulations. And so one example of that, even in my own life, people say, oh, I used to be an American. Today I'm no longer an American. I gave up my US nationality. People say, oh, isn't that un-American to do that? Well, if you think about the way America was founded, it was everybody that was living in what's America today literally told the government at the time, we are not going to obey you anymore, right? Because it used to be part of the United Kingdom, right? It used to be part of England, and they stopped, and they quit, and I'm just doing the same thing that all my founding fathers did back in America. They did. But cryptocurrency is the tool for everybody on the planet to be able to do the same thing, to say, hey, I'm going to run my own life. I'm going to be in charge of my own money. I'm going to live the way I want to live, and I don't need permission from other people, thanks to these amazing decentralized technologies.
Talking about the nature of the cryptocurrency, it was designed so that no one group or person could control it. The very nature of its decentralized design has caused disagreements about the best way forward, which has led to more than 100 forks. Of those forks, Bitcoin Cash and BTC is probably the best known, and it has become one of the largest cryptocurrencies to emerge from Bitcoin. Unpack what happened behind the idea for Bitcoin Cash. You don't have to go into details.
So here we are deep into crypto politics. If you actually look at the original Bitcoin white paper written by Satoshi Nakamoto, and you look at what happened, Bitcoin Cash is the original Bitcoin. The thing that's called BTC, Bitcoin today, it has the Bitcoin name, it has the high price, it has the popularity. Try making a payment with it. It doesn't work, and that's why myself, as the first person in the world to start a business that was not illegal, accepting Bitcoin for payments, we had to abandon it. It stopped working unless you're using a custodian nowadays. And so the entire Bitcoin politics of the day, if you look back on it, the big blockers were exactly right, the small blockers are exactly wrong, but as Mark Twain said, it's easy to fool someone, it's almost impossible to convince them that they have been fooled. And that's where the world is at this point. The world has been fooled into thinking that BTC is Bitcoin or is cool or is something, and whoever's calling me, please stop. So, yeah, so today, the civil war within Bitcoin's over. The people that wanted it to be peer-to-peer cash for the world lost that civil war, but a lot of people don't realize how incredibly razor close it was. It was within, just razor thin. What's called Bitcoin Cash today almost wound up keeping the Bitcoin name, And the thing that's called Bitcoin today would have had a different name. It would have been called, Bitcoin Core or something else. And if that had happened, I think Bitcoin Cash would be far, far, far bigger market share than BTC has today. But that's a parallel universe that we're not living in today. So,
Bitcoin Cash has already become legal tender somewhere in the Caribbean islands.
There's widespread adoption of Bitcoin Cash in St. Kitts and Antigua and all over the place, in lots of different places, because it actually works for payments. But today there's lots of different cryptocurrencies, but a fantastic website if you want to just see the power of decentralized permissionless peer-to-peer payments. Check out cashrain.com. It just launched. It's made by Kim.com, who was the founder of Mega Upload, which at one point was one of, I think, the top 10 most popular websites in the entire world. And cashrain.com is a really powerful marketing tool for cryptocurrencies in general and marketing anything in particular. And that's, I think, one of the more interesting projects that's out there in the space today.
What's so special about Bitcoin Cash as opposed to Bitcoin?
Try making a payment. If you want to understand the difference between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, make a BTC payment, make a BCH payment. A BTC payment can be anywhere from 50 cents to $50. At the end of 2017, the average confirmation time for a BTC payment was more than 2 weeks, which meant anybody could do a chargeback for 2 weeks with that. And I'm not here to bash BTC, but if you're interested in payments, BTC is not the coin for you. It's something other than BTC at this point.
How would you see the impact of the FTX debacle on those who are about to invest in cryptocurrency? Scare them away?
Sure, but it's not the first time. Before FTX, there was Mt. Gox, and there was been Celsius, and before Mt. Gox, there was Bitcoinico was another one, and there's just time and time and time again. But we've seen the same thing in traditional finance, right? So it happens in traditional finance, it happens in crypto finance, but that's why self-custody, or at least having the ability to hold the cryptocurrency yourself, is so incredibly important. And that's one more example of why chains that are very scalable with low fees make it easier for people to hold the crypto themselves. And so if you're using FTX to store your funds, we already saw what can happen with that. If you're holding your funds yourself, maybe you'll get hacked, but that seems a lot less likely because you individually will be a much smaller target for a hacker than this centralized institution like a FTX or a Mt. Gox or a Kraken or a Binance or any of these other centralized exchanges. Like, don't use them as wallets. And that's another really big problem in the industry. I see so many people calling custodian accounts wallets. A wallet is where you actually have the money yourself and it's in your own pocket, right? This is a wallet, right? You can have a wallet made by some Swiss company, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, whoever, Walmart, but this has pieces of paper in it that I control myself. If you're using a piece of software, understand whether it's a wallet where you're holding the cryptocurrency private keys yourself, or if you're using an account where someone else is holding the money for you. So the moment I take the money out of this wallet and I give it to UFJ Mitsubishi Ginko, now they have my money and I'm at their mercy. Maybe they'll give me my money back when I ask for it. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll get hacked. Maybe they'll go bankrupt. Maybe the Japanese government will tell them, don't give Roger his money. You're completely out of control as soon as you turn over your money to somebody else, whether it's cryptocurrency or traditional money. I think it's very important to have the ability to hold it yourself.
Have you ever been hacked by the Lazarus group, the group, the cybercrime group made up of unknown numbers, the individual by the North Korean government?
Not that I'm aware of, although I received multiple emails from Google telling me that nation-state actors are actively trying to hack my Google accounts. But I also know firsthand that the US government has hacked my Google account by sending what's called a subpoena to Google, saying give us all of Roger's emails and all of Roger's everything. So I think a hacking versus a subpoena is just a difference in nomenclature, but it's the same thing. So the US government already hacked all of my email. Other governments are trying to hack my email.
In terms of what you have been up to recently, I read the news that you have thrown down the gauntlet to Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. Are you teasing them or are you serious?
I think I'm teasing them because it wouldn't be a fair fight. I would absolutely destroy either of them. I have 6 or 7 years of wrestling experience and almost 17 years of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu experience. Mark Zuckerberg just won a Jiu-Jitsu tournament at white belt. I'm brown belt. Mark Zuckerberg, congratulations to blue belt. We have a mutual training partner, Mikey Musumeci. Maybe we all get to train together someday. So, martial arts is super fun. I encourage anybody to give it a try. You'd be surprised how many people that are into martial arts are also into cryptocurrency. There's a huge overlap. And one fun example of that, actually, I visited a gym in Singapore one time, and one of the people there came up to me and said, "You look just like one of these cryptocurrency guys." And he didn't realize it actually was me, but I told him, "Oh, I hear that sometimes." So.
How does the future of cryptocurrency hold in store for you or for the world? Have we seen better days, or are we waiting to see better days?
No, the future ahead is always brighter, right? We're constantly progressing, constantly making things better. I'm just to look at even these microphones, right? A couple of days ago, they would have to have cables and be plugged in. Every cell phone gets better every year. All the cryptocurrency software is getting better every year. The only thing that's not getting better every year is, I guess, my age and all of our ages. But let's fix that problem as well, so we can continue to enjoy wonderful times with friends and family, and hopefully be able to extend human lifespans, whether it's by uploading to the cloud or extending our biological bodies. But life is too fun and too exciting, and too many great, exciting, wonderful things are happening each day to let it all come to an end. So let's work on those problems as well.
I don't know how many waves we have seen, but one of the waves that we have seen is the NFTs. Are you into NFTs?
If people want to play with NFTs, I support their right to do so, but personally, I don't have much interest at all in NFTs.
Why not?
The same reason that I didn't really collect Beanie Babies or Pokemon cards or that sort of thing. Although, to be fair, one of my first businesses was selling Beanie Babies, not because I was interested myself, but because there was a market for them. So if people like it and they get joy and value out of it in their lives, fantastic. I hope they enjoy it, but I'll enjoy practicing jiu-jitsu or something else.
I don't know how long you were behind the bars. I don't know, how many years?
So for those that don't know, not years, thankfully. If it was more than 1 year, I wouldn't be allowed into Japan, but I did 10 months in federal prison in the United States more than 20 years ago for illegally selling firecrackers on eBay without a license. Yet even while I was in prison, the company I was buying the firecrackers from was still selling them without a license. The manufacturer was still manufacturing them without a license. I was the only person in the entire history of the world to be prosecuted for selling that product without a license because of the things I said politically. And then I kept quiet for the next couple of decades there until Bitcoin came along, and then it was too exciting to stay quiet politically any longer. And I want to point out to everybody that just because politicians get together and they write down words on a piece of paper and call it a law, it doesn't change morality. Right is right and wrong is wrong, regardless of what the politicians say. And if you see something that's wrong, stand up there and say, "No, this is wrong, this is not okay, we should not do that." And if you're willing to speak out with your voice, maybe there were other people out there around you, your friends or family or colleagues, that were thinking the same thing, but they didn't see anybody saying it. And by you being willing to say it, they'll have the courage to stand up and say it too. And maybe enough people will get together to say things that eventually the world will take a step forward. And that's how all of human society moves forward. It's by the lawbreakers and the people that are willing to disobey bad laws that the bad laws get changed. And so an example of that, I've never tried smoking marijuana in my entire life. But clearly this is a plant that makes people feel happy, and lots of people around the world want to use it. I was in federal prison surrounded by lots of people that were there for buying, selling, or using a plant that makes them feel happy. They weren't bad people. It was the police, the judges, and the law enforcement institution that put those people in prison that were the bad people for doing so. And it's important to speak out against these things so that the laws can change, whether it's in Japan or the US or anywhere else. Wrong is wrong, right is right, people are people all over the world, and it's important for all of us to speak up for what we truly believe in, and that's how society will move forward in the world.
I know you are fluent. I know you are very fluent in Japanese. Is it true that you taught yourself the Japanese language during those days behind the bars?
So yeah, in my first few months in prison, I was continuing to study economics, and I have to thank my time in prison for being able to inspire me to appreciate Bitcoin so early on. But the more economics I studied, the more depressed I just became in prison, so I switched to studying Japanese, and so the last maybe half of my prison sentence I spent studying Japanese, and so today I can speak Japanese pretty decently well.
It must have been very easy for you.
I don't know if it was easy, but I had a lot of free time every day to devote to it.
Okay, thank you very much. That's about it. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much as well, and thank you all.
Thank you, Roger Ver.
If I can say one last thing,
sure,
since I think we have
no problem.
So I want to inspire everybody that's here. It's still early days in the worldwide adoption of cryptocurrency. All of you that are here because you're already interested in it, but I'm sure you have friends and family and colleagues that don't know much about it yet. So I want to ask you, when you go home today or go back to work tomorrow, tell your friends, tell your family, show them how cryptocurrencies work, set them up with wallets, show them how to use this as money, and explain to them why cryptocurrencies are better than government-issued currencies and why competition leads to better quality products that more people around the world get to use. So it's up to all of us to go out there and continue to push this forward to the world so that the world becomes a better place sooner rather than later. Thank you all so much.
Excellent, ladies. Thank you, Roger. Excellent. Thank you. Roger Ver and Kazumoto Ohno. One more big round of applause, please. Excellent Fireside. Thank you both very much. Right, they're moving right along. We're going to